Whenever you're ready.
Okay, we're recording. We're good.
All right. Good evening. It's June 18th. I have 7:02 p.m. My name is John Clark. I am the board vice president and will be the chair of tonight's meeting. I call this meeting the Kendallville Independent School District to order. Let's go through roll call. Leslie Carruthers.
Here.
Julie Webb.
Here.
Andrew Bisco.
Here.
Michael Strange.
Here.
Sean Ham.
Here.
John Hunt is absent, and I am John Clark. On March 16, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request from Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meeting laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus COVID-19. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify that the notice of this meeting was posted online for at least 72 hours prior to this meeting. Although members of the board are not gathered at a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference or telephone call. We are meeting by use of Zoom video conferencing, which allows for two-way communication between the board. As we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the instructions on the meeting notice for registering to speak during the public comment portion will have their comments read in the comments portion of the posted agenda. All of the meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. An audio recording of this meeting will be made and will be available to the public at a later date. We apologize in advance for any unforeseen difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. We've already done the roll call, so that will bring us to the public comments on agenda items.
There were no public comments.
All right, then we'll move on to public comments on non-agenda items.
No comments.
All right, then item number 5, consent agenda. All items listed under this heading will be adopted with one motion unless they are removed from the consent agenda by a trustee for discussion. If you have any questions regarding one of these items, please raise that issue in advance, but otherwise, do we have any questions that have been raised about any items on the consent agenda?
There have been no questions.
Does anyone that wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for individual consideration? I do not see anyone indicating that they would like to remove an item, so I will entertain a motion with regard to the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ham and a second by Mr. Bisco. We'll go through the roll call. Leslie Carruthers.
Yes.
Julie Webb.
Yes.
Andrew Bisco.
Yes.
Michael Strange.
Yes.
Sean Ham.
Yes.
John Clark votes yes. That motion passes unanimously. We now move to item 7, board discussion. Sorry, I skipped an item. Superintendent reports.
Okay. We'll
Mr.
start
G.
with the gifted and talented update and with the program. So we have Dr. Spencer and Dr. Vu that will give that report.
So what we presented is the GTAC committee, which is the Gifted and Talented Advisory Committee, meets regularly to review the program at the end of the year. We are looking to make sure that we are in state compliance. So the document provided for you is aligned with the GT state plan. So the first column is what we need to be in compliance. The middle column is what we need to be in exemplary program. And then the third column is our documentation showing where we stand. Are we in compliance or exemplary? And then along with that, the committee came up with an action plan of things that we're going to work toward to continue to improve the plan so we can move from being in compliance to an exemplary program. So we are just sharing that information with you so you guys are continuously in the loop and you can see where we're in compliance and kind of see some of the goals and directions that we're heading toward. Again, obviously with COVID, some of our action plan may need to be adjusted. So we'll have to go back and revisit that at a later time. But I'm presenting what we came up with back in March prior to COVID. So as of right now, this is what we currently have for the GT program.
So what questions do you have, if any?
Again, you indicated this was prior to COVID. So assuming what I heard today, it seems like they want us to go back full time, attempt to go back full time. What's the contingency plan if we start full time and are forced back out?
So as far as our action plan, a lot of the things that we were looking at to move from compliance to exemplary involves community involvement. So that's probably going to have to be adjusted because of COVID. So a lot of the things that we were trying to look at of implementing may have to be shifted for a year. As far as staying in compliance, as of right now, we still have to provide GT services. We are still legally bound to do that. And we were upholding that back in the spring by providing a GT Google Classroom and enrolling students in that Google Classroom and providing services that way. As far as GT testing, we'll have to see what that looks like again in the fall. TEA mandated that we could not test in the spring. So any student that we did not cover in the spring prior to COVID, we have to honor in the fall. So depending on what that looks like when we come back, we'll have to evaluate the best way to test those students that we haven't finished. So hopefully we can get that done. But until we have a finalized plan for the fall, it's going to be a little bit hard for me to answer in specific detail what all that's going to look like.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any affirmative. Dr. Vu, I think your last testing round, you were trying to identify perhaps students that fell into GT categories in one area, but maybe not in all.
Yeah,
Can you just give us a little update of what that has done in terms of where we are?
That's part of our equity policy. And unfortunately, because we weren't able to complete the testing in the spring, we haven't moved forward in the way that we had hoped. But it's still something that we are going to actively support in the coming months. And unfortunately, until we get more specific guidance about what the fall is going to look like, and as we make those decisions, we'll be able to provide more information. But yeah, we absolutely want to make sure that our underrepresented categories of student in terms of sub-hops are reflected in our GT population.
I can tell you, Mr. Clark, based on the screening process and using the equity policy, we did double our number of students that could potentially be in the program, but we haven't been able to test them. So how many are actually going to qualify, that I'm unsure of until we finish the testing. But when we pulled the equity policy and we looked at the number of students we'd be screening, it was about double the number for all three of those elementary campuses. So we definitely have captured a lot more kids potentially for screening. We'll just have to see how many end up qualifying in the end.
Well, that's great. I'm glad we're looking for as many opportunities to help those students as we can. Are there any other questions? This does not appear to be an action item. I appreciate Dr. Vu and Dr. Spencer for helping us get this program moving. Mr. G, is there anything else on this item?
Not on this item, no.
So then we move to the Student Health Advisory Committee annual report.
Okay, and that was provided by Nurse Vasquez from the high school. She's our lead nurse. She runs our SHAC committee. The SHAC has to report to the board, and she submitted her report for you. I believe it's a one-page report, and you should all have that. Are there any, I don't really have any comments on that. If there's anything that you need clarification on or questions, please let me know.
Any board members have any questions? I see no one indicating in the affirmative.
I had,
so.
John, I didn't really have a question, but one thing I appreciated in this specific report was on page 2. Well, I guess page 1 as well, but page 2, like how I knew exactly who the committee members were. I knew where they were coming from, their point of view. I had the dates. This seemed to be, to me, like really helpful. And I think about like we're having to start create task force, right, and committees and stuff, and just kind of being very clear and transparent, identifying like here's who they are and how what perspective they're giving to the committee or the task force. So I really like that. I thought that was nice to have, nice information to have.
Whoops, I lost you at the very end there, Michael.
Did I freeze on you?
Yeah, you froze and then you went to mute.
Uh-oh, did you hear anything I said? Do I need to start over?
I
No,
think.
no, I heard it. I think you said something. I think it's a nice to have. Is that what you?
Yeah, well, just
Okay.
on page 2, how you can see all the committee members, how their point of view is in there. I know as we have to start creating task force and other committees with all these changes, it's good to have that kind of transparency and see exactly who's participating and helping and where their point of view is. So I appreciate that being in there.
And I assume, Mr. G, that that's something that we're trying to make uniform across the board, that kind of transparency
We
on these
usually
committees,
have-
appointments and meetings.
Anytime we have committees, we usually have sign-in sheets and we have documentation of who was on the committees. Yes.
Quick question, on the
Any
culinary,
questions, anything else?
yep, on the culinary side of it, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
On the culinary side of it, I saw that it's using the culinary arts class to do food for the athletes on the way in home games. Is this something new, or is this something that has been going on for a while?
New for us because we have the culinary program's new.
Okay,
Yeah. So our culinary was just created this last year. So that's why they're just now working to try to find a way to work together with our athletics. So
now is that going to be for all the athletics, or is this only for specific sports?
that's a good question. So I think that's something for us to explore. I believe football, because of the distance and the time of the games and everything, was the main concern of why they were looking at providing that service. But I don't know about the other, baseball, they travel, our district was so far away. I don't know that was feasible on away games, but putting together like sack lunches and stuff, that may be something that we look at and explore. I know that we've talked about it in other districts. So
What about things such as the band and stuff like that? The band will be going on the same trips as the football team also.
like I said, I think the band boosters usually take care of that
Okay,
component, or have taken care of that component. But I think if they're interested, that may be something they could explore. I think part of it also is the capacity of the culinary arts to be able to provide all of that. So,
right.
if they are a new program, and I don't know that how much capacity they have at this point in time.
Okay, just want to make sure that there's some input from other places other than just football. So if that is something that either the band or some other sport would like, at least we could consider it if the culinary students culinary classes is available to do that.
I believe that's, our goal is to have our culinary start participating in lots of activities throughout the community. So I think that's be well received. So,
All right, thank you.
Very active chef that's very active and wants his kids to participate in a lot of things. So,
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I just want to clarify real quick. I do understand that committee members have to sign those things and kind of keep track. But what I appreciated specifically in this document, that it was there when it was presented. Like when I popped up the document to read it, I could see on the document who was there, what their perspective is. So just that transparency in the document itself when it's being presented was kind of what I was alluding to there. So I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, then we will move on to item C, which is a roofing update.
all right, they've been going for a couple of weeks now, and they're at, I'd say, over halfway done with the CIA building, waiting on the roof proposal that you're going to be looking at tonight. Not the roof, the AC proposal we'll be looking at tonight. Is they need to have that information. They're moving pretty quickly, so they need to have that information tomorrow. We hit a snafu with some rafters. There's some damage to a section of the CIA building that's going to have the rafters and trusses replaced. Right now, our engineers and K-Post engineers are looking at it, and it looks like it's around $38,000 to replace the trusses, and then about $5,000 in temporary repairs. So for a total of around $44,000. But we have contingency to take care of that. But it's just one of those things that when they started pulling it off, that it was more extensive in that area than we thought. So. And that's pretty much where we are on the roofs. They've started on Delaney, and they've got everything set up for Arthur, and they'll be starting on that one as soon as they finish CIA.
Any questions? All right. Item D, return to school planning.
Okay, so Dr. Vu and I have met, Dr. Vu and Mr. Adams and I have met, Dr. Vu, myself, and Mr. Holguin have met. And today we have had our first meeting of our, I guess, return to school task force. We had a good turnout at the media center. Mr. Holguin is running that task force. They will be breaking off into subgroups, and those subgroups will go back to their campuses and form committees on those campuses that will bring more people into that mix. So that was the plan for the action. We are, I know that Fort Worth has come out and announced stuff. The governor came out today and announced that, we will be back to school come the fall. But yet TEA, the commissioner was supposed to speak yesterday or Tuesday and give us a lot of insight on how that's going to look and how we're going to be funded and the guidelines. And he basically said he would put it off to the next meeting. Well, that meeting was supposed to be today, and I got an email this morning saying that had been canceled. So the next meeting will be next Tuesday. So we still are not getting a whole lot of guidance from TEA in that aspect of it. TEA has released 3 models where you're completely virtual, you are completely back in school, or you have a hybrid model. And I believe what Fort Worth is released is that they're going to have the 2 options, back in school or virtual at home. I believe everybody realizes that we're going to have some combination of that too. It's going to have to be a hybrid model. And now how that looks, that's going to be determined upon the guidelines, CDC, the Texas Health Department, and our state, lawmakers, as well as the Commissioner of Education with the rulings that he puts out. So there are a lot of answers, variables still to be determined before we can start formulating a whole lot of answers. Our task force is focusing on the logistics of what it would take to sit there and be able to do the things that we believe we're going to have to do, and looking at all the questions that are going to pop up. So that's basically what our task force is starting to investigate. So that's kind of where we are with our return to school planning. Right now, we're looking at maintaining our regular calendar. I will say that a lot of districts are contemplating intersessional. The commissioner's pushing intersessional calendars. I don't believe intersessional calendars accommodate, you can't really predict when you're going to have a COVID-19 outbreak or recurrence. So adding days into your calendar that would be like bad weather days, but you could call them health days or emergency days that you would add to the end of your calendar is, I believe, a more viable, practical option for us at this point in time. But we plan on maintaining our calendar right now. So.
Questions?
Quick, I guess, would we need more technical, cameras and stuff like that if we do some type of hybrid where either we're filming the teachers in the classroom or they're filming it outside?
Yes, Dr. Spencer, Dr. Vu and I have discussed this. Mr. Franklin and I have discussed this. One of the things that we need to make sure that we ensure at this time is that when we do virtual, whoever's doing the virtual at home is being held to the same standards of the students that are in the classroom, and that learning is the same. And there's not a difference. And that means that we're going to have to do some recording. Teachers are going to have to record their lessons, and we're going to have to sit there and get those to the students who are learning at home.
Are we anticipating that being a separate teacher or the same teachers that are doing it in the classroom, recording them?
We will be setting up Google Classrooms. It should be the same teacher so that the students are all on the same Google Classroom, still all doing the same work.
Okay, thank you.
Same expectations.
Yes.
Are we going to provide support to teachers who are, straddling those two worlds? Doing it online is one process, doing it in person is another. Are we going to give them support? Because I think they're going to perceive it as a lot more work to try to have a in-person classroom setting and then add on top of that a distance learning model. So, are we going to start giving them support in advance for that likelihood?
We have Google Classroom training. Dr. Spencer has already been offering those trainings. We are also talking about making that a requirement when we come back for our back to school PD for our teachers. The reality is it should pretty much be just an easy transition because what they're doing in the classroom should transcend. If they already set up their Google Classrooms, which we've already been working on that, and they have Google Classroom training. I'll let Dr. Spencer and Dr. Vu speak to this some more, but the reality is it really, I don't see should cause that much strive for people, as with the support that we should be able to give them. So, Dr. Spencer.
We absolutely,
Dr.
we absolutely will provide support. And in fact, Dr. Spencer and I were talking about this today. We have several different options. The truth is, though, that we are a small district with limited staff, and we really want to focus our energy where it's going to have the greatest impact. And until we heard from TA, or where the information is coming out now in terms of what our options are, it's really difficult to make decisions about instruction and the best way to do that. But in terms of providing support to teachers, it's unreasonable to ask teachers to do what they've always done and also add all of this extra technology and also support learners at home without additional training and support. So absolutely they need it, and absolutely we'll provide it.
And I've worked to develop several PD sessions for teachers over the summer on all of these things. How do we do Google Classroom in small groups? How do you do feedback? How do you give accommodations? How do we lesson plan? How do you pick the right tools? All those different kinds of things, and trying to help teachers feel more equipped and more comfortable. And I've made myself available to do workshops and different things with them, especially for those classrooms that are not one-to-one. That's where a lot of teachers have some stress, is how do we do this when not every kid has a device, and how do we do Google Classroom with that? So I've worked really hard to provide a lot of PD sessions this summer, to try to equip them as much as possible before school starts. And then again, like they said, we'll do more trainings once we have a definitive plan to kind of target some more of those areas of concern, to try to make sure they feel as confident as possible to teach online as much as they possibly can, and do what we can to make them feel as supported as they possibly can.
Additionally, we have also created sites. Dr. Spencer and the curriculum group have created sites of resources for teachers to go into by grade level and subject area to pull into Google Classroom, where those resources are readily available.
Dr. Spencer, you said you already built out those trainings. Are those trainings available now for teachers to go back and watch and go through?
Yes, sir. There are 5 different sessions totaling 11 hours of PD. So I have different sessions with different amount of hours. So the way that I set it up is that I've done live team sessions with teachers that want to do it with me online. And so I've recorded those sessions, and then I've uploaded those all into Canvas. So if they didn't do it with me live, they can watch the video and do it self-paced. But I've also told teachers if they want to set up some workshop time with me over the summer, I'm certainly happy to make some time for them to help them. I know this is a big bear for teachers, and they're feeling a lot of anxiety about it. And so I'm happy to carve out time to help them. But it's all available through our professional development website. So everything I've developed is out there and live for them.
For the teachers to access right now. Yeah, because
Yes.
I know some teachers, they're all different, right? Just like students, we're all different.
Right.
So some teachers are like, hey, give it to me now. I want to learn it now. And some are like, hey, let's just wait until we get closer. So I appreciate that, because I know if we wait until the back to school 2 weeks before school starts to do all this, like that ship has sailed. It is way too late to be learning all that. They have other things on their plate, and and it may be easy for some teachers and an extreme lift for other teachers. So we can't just say, it's going to be pretty easy for everybody, or it's going to be really hard. Everyone's in different boats. So I appreciate you having, for those that want to jump in and start doing it now, they can just do that. So that's, I appreciate that.
And I sent out an email to all of the staff on June 1st with the access to the professional learning digital catalog. And so it's broken down. You can look at, I'm an administrator, I'm a teacher. You can look at content areas. There are some just in terms of blended learning or digital learning specific trainings, all kinds of choices, as well as what is required by statute, and then just some optional trainings as well. And Dr. Spencer and I today were talking about maybe some options for providing additional support during Welcome Back Week, and even having a specific training for administrators. So I'm not a teacher necessarily running a Google Classroom, but if I'm going to be monitoring and supporting my teachers, what do I need to look for? We, of course, always can think about ways to do better and to do more, but we are absolutely being proactive and making sure that our teachers have support from us as we embark on this new and unanticipated journey.
In addition to that, Dr. Spencer and Dr. Keys and I spoke yesterday, and Dr. Vu and I spoke later about the reality of doing Google Classroom training for parents to help parents support parents at home as well. So
you were reading my mind. That was the second thing that I was going to ask, was that I think if we've learned anything in the last few months is the importance that parents can play in this role of distant learning, or what? Yeah, just what's that?
And siblings.
Yeah, and yeah, just like the whole family involved. And so, I think in one way you've got parents that are willing to help, and then you have others that they are willing, but maybe there's a language barrier, maybe there's and not just language in that, but like technology language, like they're just not real comfortable. So as many ways as we can to kind of alleviate that and help them jump in and help out. I think that's going to be beneficial to the students overall.
Yeah, I've taken a lot of feedback from the teachers and looking at the survey data to see what were some of the common things that parents were struggling with at home. And so my goal is to kind of create a PD site for parents. So they have access to information, they have videos, tutorials, things to kind of help them on their end, so they're not feeling as overwhelmed. And so that way it will be a little bit more support at home, support more for the teachers, more for admin, just kind of across the board, expanding what I have and kind of sharing that knowledge. And then again, like it's hard for those elementary because they're not one-to-one. And so those kids, it was a hard transition. They haven't had that exposure to Google Classroom before. They haven't all had exposure to doing work on a laptop before. So I think that was part of the hard transition. And so I think that's just something to think about too, as we're moving in that direction to support parents and kids, just making sure we have all the resources and we're training and providing as much as we can.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it makes me think of the opportunity to not have it all on your shoulders, but you've got PTA, like you've got other organizations that connect to parents in other ways that could be leveraged there as well to kind of help spread the message. So I think it's a good opportunity to connect to parents. Thank you.
And another aspect that we haven't addressed is that the expectation from us will be that Google Classrooms will be set up from day one, and we won't be having to do this come the next time something happens, that those Google Classrooms will be set up immediately. Okay.
Leslie had a question.
Okay.
One thing, Ashley, I was going to say that I heard from parents with little ones was the different devices. Like if you're using a laptop, it looks one way. If you're using a iPad, it looks a different. So, I'm sure you know that, but just food for thought to, it's different. And I know that sometimes throws us when it doesn't look the same or whatever. So that might be a good thing right there in the parent thing to say, here's how it goes.
Yeah, and I want to make like a compatibility chart for parents so that way they can kind of see. So like if we do have to do devices on your own, again, are you using a home device, they can kind of know up front, your Kindle's not going to be effective with Google Classroom. So while you said yes on the survey, I have a device, it's not going to help you with Google Classroom. And so some of the parents kind of ran into that. And then they came back and said, well, I need a Chromebook because this isn't working.
Yes.
So kind of coming, like, those are the things that are on my list that I want to kind of address with the parent information. And I've kind of chatted with Brian Franklin about that too, of when we're thinking about devices and things, making sure that we're covering all of that. And again, it's hard for elementary. They're not one-to-one. And so it's just a whole different ballgame to them. And so I think if we can get to one-to-one at some point, that'd be a lot easier for kids, because then everybody has the same device and it's equitable and it's just a lot easier. But like in the past situation, that just wasn't an option. So we kind of had to work with what we had. But you are absolutely correct. Not everything's compatible across the board. And so that's definitely something to address for parents.
Mr. G, one more thing before we get off this subject. As far as planning for social distancing and stuff like that, have we started looking into, or do we need to looking into having thermometers or some type of dividers for the desks? I know Dallas has got things like dividers for the desk, and or planning on getting things like dividers for desks and for cafeteria. Are we looking into things like that, or is it just too early to know what we're going to be doing with it?
Well, I know that in the commissioner's talk on Tuesday, he said that there will be no minimum classroom requirements set out for campuses. He also said there will be no PPE mask requirements set out by TEA. So that was kind of kind of threw us off, because we were expecting for them to come out with some sort of guidance that would say that. But those were the two things that he definitely said. Another consideration is the buses. You know, if they start putting requirements on the buses, how do we transport students and maintain the social distancing? So these were all concerns that we were very concerned about, as far as how is that going to help us facilitate operations or hinder us in offering coming back to school. So at this time, we still don't have all those answers, but yes, we've been looking at our cafeteria sizes. We've been looking at how to space students out. We have areas of the cafeteria that aren't utilized that we can move tables to, buy extra tables that we're looking at doing. As far as the shield or the dividers, that's becoming more and more prevalent, and that's a definite option. I don't know that we, can put them in every classroom, but the state has also purchased, I mentioned, but I think the last board meeting, the CARES money that the federal government gave to the state to give to the districts, that the state basically said, we're not giving it to you. We're going to, take it out of your FSP. They bought PPE with that, and now we have an allotment of PPE that Mr. Adams got an email on the other day, and they've been talking about. So by August 1st, we should have disposable mask, reusable mask, hand sanitizers, thermometers, those things that are coming from a state's surplus that the state has bought. So I hope that answers or somewhat your question. But as far as, do we have a plan to go out and buy a bunch of shields? Not at this time, but those are options that we're exploring with our task force and stuff. What's going to be the best option for us? But we also are looking at the size of our cafeterias, how much spacing we can have. Large congregations, having more lunches or more lunch periods so we can have less numbers in there. Those are all options that we're looking at. Our scheduling, all those things are on the table right now. So.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Julie, you have any comments? And don't miss you.
Yeah, I was wondering, and this might be a question for Brian, where are we to get to one-to-one? Do we need to speed that up, or do we need to purchase more? I know we're short and that we have a slow plan, but how's that working right now if we go back into this and those resources aren't there, or those kids are kind of thrown into it and they don't have any practice with those devices?
Yeah, we've started talking about one-to-one, and really the last conversation we had with Dr. Vu and Mr. G was we felt like we didn't want to rush into that investment and that decision on that for fall in particular, because it is a big deal. It's a big commitment. And we didn't want to make a rush decision and wind up with the wrong things. So there's some questions that are still on the table, like what grade levels is it appropriate for what device, and things like that. That's the biggest one, really. So But we're definitely talking about it.
What grades are we 1-to-1 right now? Is it?
Right now it's 5 through 12. Our the 5 through 12 is 1-to-1, and the take home is 7 through 12.
Okay.
And with the surplus that we have right now, we feel like we could be 1-to-1, 3 through 12 fairly easily, but we don't really know how appropriate it would be for Chromebooks to be with pre-K, kinder, and first grade, in second grade, how appropriate are Chromebooks for those age levels. But we could, I think, with what we have, very easily be 1-to-1. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, with what we have throughout the district to be able to do that.
Yeah, we're in the process of doing some final counts, looking at our inventory on some of our the Chromebooks that have come back from seniors and some of the ones that we would normally have rotated down to elementary. So I think we would be close, if not being able to meet that.
Are the Chromebooks that are coming down from seniors, are they touch screen?
No, we haven't done any touchscreen Chromebooks.
That would be tough for them.
Apart from some special needs.
Right.
But our main core Chromebook purchases are not touchscreen.
And do we have any alternate plans for those parents that do not want their children to have any type of devices?
I would let Dr. Vu speak to that, but I think it would be the packets if we went into another lockdown type situation.
Yeah, if we have parents who don't want their children to have devices, the only other option is paper-based packets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those aren't great options. Paper packets are not great options. And like I said, the expectation of the Google Classrooms and the students following along with what's in the classroom. So that's to be consistent. But, that's
okay. That's the parent's choice.
Concerns that we have to deal with. Yeah. So.
One other thing that it's kind of a wait and see, kind of jumping back to the current Chromebook thing is what is our repair need going to be once we go back in to all of this as well, because we have some, we're not able to take some of the new devices just for safety reasons. We're not able to take them and immediately work on them. We were very careful handling those and letting them sit for a while and then repairing them as they came by. So it's just another thing to keep in mind. There's just some unknown factors in all of this right now, and that's really the point.
Julie, I know you just chimed in. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's great. I think that's exactly what, just for you and Dr. Vu and Mr. G, I think from the board standpoint, don't be afraid to speak up when we go through some of this stuff. If you need more technology in one area, things that we haven't had in the past, we don't see that. So we're trusting y'all to do that and to speak up, and we want that for y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on Julie, that when you think about, like I talked about the last board meeting, like not just hardware, but even software, like knowing like this is a huge lift for teachers. So if there's adaptive software as a math teacher, if I can use Imagine Math or IXL, whatever that to help me with that. So I'm not grading 1,000 papers, 1,000 assignments when I'm at home, and I can get personalized feedback to the students immediately. Sometimes those license costs a little bit, and in the typical budget, we don't have that, but I mean, I would be all on board to help teachers in that way if that's helpful.
I had 2 points I was going to ask. Are we going to have time during staff development at the beginning of the year to have what I call live trial runs? When we experience at the courthouse, when you happen to have a day where judges have 10 hearings among 12 courts, their network crashes. Our teachers have been working independently at their homes. Are we going to have a chance for them to sample and try this when they get back in their classroom to say, uh-oh, I don't know how to do it, or our system's having difficulties recording, storing, whatever? Are we going to have an opportunity for that before they get back in first day of school?
So are you asking an opportunity to practice virtual learning strategies, or are you asking about something different? Can you clarify your question?
I'm
Your
asking
mic
about
is
them
cutting
having,
out, John. So
I'm asking, are they going to have the opportunity to be in their classroom using the technology that we're expecting them to use to provide these online learning opportunities while they're still trying to educate live? And will our network handle 500 teachers at one time pressing the network, either with downloads or uploads, whatever the case may be?
Brian, you want to speak about our network?
Well, as far as the practicing, that's not something that I had thought of, but this is why we talk about these things. I think it's a great idea, and that's actually something we could build into Welcome Back Week. I cannot speak to the network. I have no idea about that, but in terms of scheduling, I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Stress test.
Well,
We can do that.
Right.
I'm saying I do that for my courtroom hearings. I will bring my clients in and we'll connect at least one other location up, because it's either 3, 4, 5, depending on the number of witnesses, and test before we attempt to do an involved court hearing.
It's a great idea. Yes, we'll build it.
Because somebody's network, inevitably that process dies.
Yeah, it's a great idea. We'll do that. Something like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. As far as the stress on the network goes, one of the things that I've thought about is, for one, that definitely won't work over Wi-Fi. So teachers are going to need to maybe think about where they place their desk, because we're going to want a hardwired connection going to those, and not use Wi-Fi, because we're talking about live streaming. And yeah, you're talking about all these classrooms, every building live streaming all at the same time. It is going to be a big hit. Luckily, we switched over. Our internet service provider is going through the service center, so that significantly increased our network trunk, our network bandwidth overall. It'll be interesting to see. We're going to have to watch it very closely. As far as hardware goes, our hardware is kind of, we've got a lot of room on the hardware in terms of the switch and network infrastructure, processing and compute resources. Network bandwidth, we're good. I would want them to plug in, and I think it's an excellent idea to go in and have teachers test that. I think even before that, we need to get people in there and figure it out. And go through it a few times ourselves. So
you just mentioned something. You said that it has to be hardwired. I suspect every teacher has their classroom organized for instruction in person. They have it, and so they haven't thought about, oh no, my camera has to be here.
That's right.
And so they need to know that before they get in there, because they're going their first day of school, then they're scrambling to rearrange, set things up. At least give them that opportunity if we have staff development time.
And the other thing may not necessarily be live streaming. It may be where they're having to record and send out the recordings.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We haven't come to the consensus that live streaming is the best option. I know that our parents thus far have indicated a desire for students to have more synchronous interaction with their teachers, but so it may be more of something that looks like a flipped model, where there may be some instructional video that the students get, and then the teachers can provide some efficient support. But all of those things are contingent upon our approach to safety. And so if we do go to live streaming, I think that it's absolutely something we can practice, but I can't be confident that everybody would be doing it all day at the same time. I don't know if that would create optimal learning outcomes at all. Like using a swivel camera that just follows the teacher around, I'm not sure that is going to be what's best in terms of kids learning or student achievement. But those are all things that we are working on and talking about.
And the other thing, from the board perspective, Mr. G, I think we need to have a very clear policy statement about what our expectations are going in if we're starting live, and what that does if the situation changes like it did in mid-year. We need to be very clear about what's going to happen and what that's going to do in terms of where they are, what their grades are. Be very clear, so there's nobody saying, I didn't know, or you changed the rules halfway. I think we just need to be very, very straightforward about, if we're online, this is what the end is going to be. And if we're live and you choose to be online, then this is where you're going to be in comparison. We just got to come up with that policy very clearly.
Mr. G and I spoke about that this week. Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions on this issue? Any other comments, Mr. G, Dr. Vu?
Nope.
All right, then we'll move on to KHS number E, KHS Senior Parade.
All right, so we have with the city partnered to put on a parade. Mr. Holguin has done extensive meetings and planning. Mrs. Hyde from the high school has been organizing it. It will start from the junior high school where we'll stage the cars. They've worked out all the safety and the security and the blocking out the streets. It will come down Corey Edwards and it will come down in front of the central admin. It will go down Sublet Road through the turnabouts or down to Wildcat Way, down up through the high school, and that will be the end of the parade. If the board would like, I think it would be good for the board to come out to support and that turnaround at the Wildcat Way, the one that has the actual Wildcat on it with the little girl. If that would be a good place that everybody would like to be, then I think that would be a great place for y'all to come support the students. And show your support. If you decorate and you bring out decorations, all of it has to be cleaned up by 3 o'clock. It's a good way to send our seniors off, but it's taken a lot of planning and a lot of meetings. Mr. Holguin, I give him kudos for this. He has worked pretty diligently to sit there and help make this happen. So just wanted to invite you and make sure that you know about the parade and when it's going to take place. It will be at 9 o'clock Saturday morning. They leave from the junior high school. So I figure it will take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour for them to complete this path. So
I think it's great. Any comments, concerns?
I would just say thank you for planning it. I think it's great to build spirit and unity and pull the community together in positive ways any way that we can. And some new traditions would be great. I mean, I think it's good. I hope it's a good turnout and I hope it works out because I think it could be good.
And I would say if y'all can help us with the spreading the word, we've got it out. It's been broadcast, it's been put out on the high school site, it's been put out on our site, but just getting it out in the community. I talked to Jeff Navarez with the newspaper. He's going to put it out. He's going to be there live streaming from the parade. So I think those are all positives, but just getting the community out to support would be great. I know that one reason why we're coming up into the high school, there's not a whole lot of places for people to park and kind of support along the way. That's why we're coming down the parkway, because it will allow people to park up in our parking lots and kind of be out there to support and along town center. But then when you get down to Sublet, there's no place other than really the turnabouts to really kind of be out there supporting the kids. So until they get back to the high school. So whatever you can do to help us out, we'd appreciate it.
Well, I'm definitely planning on being there. Like Leslie said, this is a great opportunity to build some camaraderie in our community, and a great way to send the seniors off. The seniors have had so many things that they didn't expect happen that were negative this year. Hopefully, this is a good positive thing to send them off into the new world of college or work or wherever they're going, the military, and hopefully this will be a good send off for them.
Agreed.
Any other comments? All right, move on to F, graduation.
All right. Graduation, hopefully you've all picked up your parking passes, and I believe that you all plan on being at the graduation. We will, if you can be there possibly an hour, 45 minutes ahead of schedule, that would be great. So we can kind of talk through what we're going to be doing, and then we don't get a rehearsal, so it's a one and done. So it's trial by error, and that's kind of the way it's going to have to be. So we will kind of, I don't want to say wing it, but we're gonna wing it to the best of our abilities and hopefully give the kids a very memorable graduation. So, is there anybody who's not going to be able to make it?
Any issues?
I hadn't heard. Okay, all right. Any questions?
I don't see any.
Okay.
We had I've got the graduation mask, so we had the community that all bought some. So all the seniors will get one either at the beginning of the parade when they have to check in, that stuff, or at the gate right there before the parade starts. And then of course we have we have enough for all the staff that work the graduation, and then board members. Obviously, if you want one central staff, I ordered 300. So I think we've got like 240 seniors, something like that. So plenty to go around, but I just want to say kudos to Mr. Bisco, John Clark for helping donate, and all the other community members that were there. We raised all the monies in about 1 week, so it was great.
Thank you.
All right. Item 7, board discussion. We have upcoming meeting dates, budget workshop meeting dates, and SLI. Mr. G.
Okay, we have the media center is completed. Brian, we have the capacity to move back into the media center. We just need to know whether you want to host meetings back in the media center in person instead of virtually. The thing is, we have to separate and create tables with mics, which we can get done very easily, but we just need to know. And then we need to kind of get your input on whether you plan on participating, and that's what you want to do. So before we go to moving all of that, or do you want to stay virtual? So.
As far as me, virtual is fine. I don't have a real, I don't think there's a real need to go back to the media center, but it's possible. Have we heard anything as far as any of the community that want to actually go to a live meeting and would like to be at the communities at the media center?
No, we have not had any comments that have come through, and no comments for the meetings, the virtual meetings. So we haven't had anything there, but we are getting to the point where we're looking at budget workshops, and we're looking at finishing up our team of 8 with Holly. I just got off the phone with her earlier. She just got back to work. We're going to try to plan a community meeting in the next week or so to work through the values and the beliefs, and then bring that back to you in a work session before. That's kind of what we're looking at the calendar here. If possible, what we'd like to do is do the budget one with our UTA study has come back, but they want to present the UTA study in person. They don't want to really do that virtually. They'd like to do it in person. They'd like to do that in that first week following the 4th of July. I think that'd be like June 6th, and then possibly have the regular board meeting with a work session with Holly on the 23rd. So.
Well, again, in terms of the budget presentation and making variations, I think it's probably easier if we're all in one place, that we can see it as it's presented and modified. I mean, Sean can probably tell you more about how you present financials to a group of people and make changes on the fly with technology, but it always seems like there's delays and problems. You really can't communicate, can't show it very well. But I mean, I think we would benefit by having those presentations in person. And as I see it, we could be up in the row, spread out pretty far, looking at the presentation on the big screen. In terms of really not having a social distancing problem. But that's my 2 cents about doing budget. I do think we need to be in one place, because you don't see the numbers all the same way. You don't see them presented the same way. That's my thought. And I open the floor for any other discussions about that.
Well, I kind of feel the same, that we need to be meeting, and then if the public wants to come, they can come. But I think if we're out, I mean, I know a lot of us are out working, doing other things, that if I'm able to do that, then I'm able to come to a meeting and not hide, be behind the deal. Now, that's just my personal opinion, but I think, some of those things are better for us all to be together.
Let's look at,
Quick
we're
question.
talking about the first week of July. What does everybody think about meeting for a budget meeting the first week of July in person in the media center? a strong
I
feeling.
cannot. I'm on vacation that week.
Same here.
Okay, what about the next week, Chad? Is that enough time?
July 6th, is that when you're talking?
No, July 13th now, the week of July
Just
13th.
it'd have one then and turn around and have one if we do that, then
A regular
yeah,
meeting would be the
I think we could
23rd.
do it, push it to the second week. We talked about the first or second week of July being that one after the 4th of July weekend or week or whatever. I think the next week's fine. We can do that, but then you're going to turn around and have your regular meeting, I think 2 weeks after that. So.
But I think the budget discussions, we're gonna have things that we're wanting to talk about changing anyway, so I'm not sure that that's really so bad, but we need board consensus on this.
Yeah, and like I said, the budget workshop would be the UTA study and just budget workshop going through some potential numbers and all that stuff with you guys. So
I was thinking it was helpful in the past when people presented like in a department, here's where we are, you know, my wish list, what I got a shortfall in. I mean, I think it's helpful to hear from those departments as we look at those budget items, you know, or however you want to present it, Mr. G, but I think it's important to also have that presentation available.
you're cutting out badly, John. I'm
sorry.
catching.
I was saying it might be helpful. I mean, I know Jim's gonna come in and say, here's our preliminary budget. I sometimes think it's important to hear what the high school says, you know, their wish list is and, you know, where we got to go. I mean, I think it's helpful to hear some of that, but I'm just one person on that idea.
I'm going to be honest with you right now, with the state of the finances with the state, I don't know that we're going to have a whole lot of flexibility with what we have as far as our budget and where we are as far as our wish list and all that. So, you know, the state is predicting that we will be running deficit budgets potentially. So not because of what we're doing, but because of the whole economic situation with the state of Texas. So, I mean, I understand that, but we haven't had a whole lot of things to be able to, didn't even have a full year to finish out our regular budget cycle with our normal expenditures. So that's going to skew some things also. So we're, what else you want to say?
Just a few comments about budget. Got a notice from the appraisal district on June the 12th, and approximately 25% of our values are under protest. Now I was hoping Tuesday to hear from the commissioner about what they're going to do for state funding. That's been postponed until next Tuesday. I did get preliminary numbers out to all the campuses and departments today. I was going to do it yesterday, but it got away from me. So it has an option for everyone to list their needs, and they can list their wants and wishes, but I told them wants and wishes are probably wants and wishes.
Needs are going to take priority. Salary structure, where we are with salaries and what we may need to do with salaries be a big part of what we need to discuss. Those are those things that we want to look at with what our needs are and what our salary structure may potentially look like. So.
Just in the general fund, about 83% of our budget is tied up in payroll and related benefits. 17% is operating costs. So.
Jimmy, how much, you know, you said 25% on people challenging their values. What's normal?
Not near that much.
Like 5%?
Usually somewhere around 10 to 15%.
Okay. There have been a lot of people.
A lot of it is they're protesting their taxes, not the values. And of course, we don't have, the truth in taxation now is not we're not computing an effective rate, we're computing a not to go above rate. And some of that I don't even get to do anything until July the 25th when I get certified values. And then I've got to send it to Austin, to TEA, and they're going to tell me what my compressed rate is.
And,
So, I mean,
and the commissioner still hasn't told us how we're going to be funded for next year. So,
and I'm juggling all this, trying to put it all together, so.
as I said, there are a
That
lot
being
of,
said, would us scheduling, what about looking at like the 14th for a budget workshop and presentation by UTA? That's a Tuesday. Everybody have calendars to look at? Is that a possible workable date?
I mean, I'll have some additional information mainly on state funding, and hopefully, you know, we're hiring people every day. I'm approving positions and funding for those positions as fast as they're coming in. In a lot of cases, I'm leaving the old salary for the person that left in until I know what the new person is. So we're going to be close, but you know, it may not be an exact number.
clarifying it. Yeah. So we want to look at the 14th for the
Sean, let's get-
workshop. Is that what you said, John?
I mean, you guys are on vacation. Does that work for you all, the 14th at 7?
It does for me.
Center? I'm looking.
Okay, so we'll have the UTA study presented and the budget workshop over the things we discussed. Okay.
You know, I've been reading about districts all over the state that some of them are not given any raise, some 1%, some 2%. I mean, I'll have numbers to reflect those potential raises.
And some have been given bonuses. I'm like, how are y'all doing that?
Yeah, I know. That's what I wonder.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we'd have our regular meeting on Thursday, the 23rd of July.
Is that good with everybody, the 23rd? Tracy would prefer that if y'all could do it on the 23rd, that would help her. So,
It's fine with me.
Also, currently, we're out for proposals on copy machines for the district. And if we could do it on the 13th, that would be helpful too, to go ahead and approve that.
13th, 14th.
14th, whatever day.
14th.
Sorry.
Both of those are 7 o'clock, correct?
Well, if we do the 23rd, and could we do the special session at 6 with Holly to do the values and beliefs? And
Okay.
kind of wrap that up for our strategic planning and mission, vision, goals, values.
Okay, so you're talking special on July 23rd at 6.
And regular
and
at
then
7.
Regular at 7.
Everyone seems to
On
be.
the 14th,
I'm
just
curious.
a
Yeah, special
workshop at 7.
Okay, when did you say to have the special? Are you talking about on the 14th or the 23rd?
Okay, so on the 14th, we will have just a workshop at 7 o'clock
Okay,
for UTA study and to give you the information from the UTA study and to work on to budget. Okay. And then on the 23rd, Thursday, have a 6 o'clock special session, finishing the values and beliefs that go along with the mission and the values, or the core, the mission and vision going along with that. And then at 7 o'clock, having our regular meeting.
okay.
Okay.
At the media center.
Yes.
Everyone's,
If everybody's in agreement with that. So,
Fine.
I think so. All right. And the only item
okay,
on
I'm
this,
just making sure I have this written down for them.
The adjective right is usually defined as in accordance with what is good, proper, or just. The adverb right.
okay. All right. And then SLI, have you all registered? You should, those of you who have registered SLI, I think starts the 24th through the 26th, and it's going to be all virtual. So I think Tracy's got you, those of you registered, and your email confirmation from TASB. If you didn't, please contact Tracy. And
Can
I
you
think
tell us
that's
how many required hours do we have to have?
it varies by your, oh my gosh, you would put me on the spot on that one.
Well, just email me. I mean, I don't have to know now, but I
Right.
just want to be sure I get for sure that many. And, you know, since I'm not going to be out of town, I'll be at work. And so I'm going to be juggling, but I want to make sure I get.
And they also have those required ones that now they're requiring that you have certain ones that you have to have every so often. So you're up for those, you're gonna have to get those, and I'll make sure Tracy sends that all out to you. Okay.
Yeah, there's usually like a list.
And there's a
and it
replay too,
says-
Leslie. So
Say it again.
there's a
Yeah, they
replay.
changed
that-
the way. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
So there's a replay. If you can't make the session at the time, you can pick it up on another date. If
Okay.
you sit through all what they're sending us, it's 11 hours total.
And
That
they've
we're
changed
required
the
to have?
tier structure. Yeah.
No, you're not required to have 11 hours. I don't think it's that high, Leslie. I'm just saying you can get up to 11 hours if you complete the whole
For
session.
SLI.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they've changed the tier system to where it's now doesn't look the same. So I'll have Tracy send all that out to you again.
All right. And that moves us to item 8, business items requiring action. And A is discuss and possible approval of HVAC vendor.
Okay, Ms. Mo, do you want to come in?
Oh.
She's still with us,
You're
Brian?
muted. Now
There
she
we
is.
go. Yeah, I'm still here. I just hadn't had the mic on. Does anybody have any questions on what was submitted? Our third vendor never came through, never submitted anything, had some conversation, but never provided any documentation for us. So does anybody have any question on anything that's out there?
Well, I emailed in a question.
You'd asked about the brand that I believe it was Caldwell, and that was Carrier.
It was
Carrier?
Comfort Makers by Carrier.
Right. Okay, so they're doing Carrier, Comfort Maker, and the other one's doing Linux.
Yes.
Is Caldwell, I
But they-
didn't see you listing what tonnage those air conditioners were.
Unfortunately, he didn't put in a very detailed coefficient quote, so it was hard getting a lot of that information. He is a local vendor that's done good work for us in the past. He's just not used to having to do full bids like this particular one.
Okay.
The other thing is he didn't include the
Yes. He didn't put
permits
any
for the city.
permitting or any electrical work in there either. So we would be required to pull the permits with the city, which the other vendor, I never say it right, Viromatic, they're already the vendor that K-Post is using to do the, what's the term? The curbs that were not up to code, when they're bringing those up to code. They're by board approved, they're co-op, permits are already drawn. It seems like the best option. That's my recommendation, that we go with them. They've already got the equipment on site, and they can rock and roll right along with K-Post.
Well, usually the permits are included.
Yes, but usually the vendor pulls the permits. And Mr. Caldwell said he was having trouble getting hold of the city, so he wanted us to pull the permits if we chose him. Which I don't feel comfortable doing that. I feel like, he should pull them because he knows what he needs to be doing to be to code.
Yeah. What are they saying about a Linux air conditioning over a Carrier?
We've got Linux throughout the districts. I don't know exactly how many on top of our head. Most of our, we're trying to get away from the train. The train has been a killer for us as far as maintenance is concerned. But we have a lot of Linux. We have a few RUD and a lot of Carrier. So a lot of the stuff at the high school is Linux and Carrier.
My experience is I've had a real good run with train. I don't know much about the equipment comparison. Yeah, I'm just saying personally, my trains have been pretty good. I get 12 to 15 years out of them, which is, I think, better than most in terms of coils.
We've replaced a ton of train. Part of our problem with train is trying to get people to work on them. they're so proprietary that other people can't work on them. So you have to call Train. And it seems like every time we have to call out for a repair, it runs us at least $1,500, if not more.
But your recommendation is to go with Environmatic?
Yes.
Have you asked anything about a side-by-side comparison of the carrier to the Linux?
No, ma'am. Do you have concerns with the Linux?
Well, I mean, I don't do school stuff, but in the normal thing, Train is your best, then you've got carrier and some of that, and I don't know where Linux falls. It's lower than that. And I mean, I'm fine. I just thought we should ask the questions because it wasn't on there what specific, and are they compatible? I don't know. I mean, I am definitely not an air conditioning expert, but I do know about the brands and a lot of that sort of thing. So that's just was one of my concerns. So, but if y'all think that Linux is going to be okay, then
we have several units. We currently have, I think, 422 units right now. And I would venture to guess probably 25% of those are Linux. Got a lot of Train, we got a lot of carrier, and we have Linux, very few RUD. And a few York.
Well, we're to the point where I think we need to entertain a motion with regard to this issue.
And we also are at a time sensitive point too, if we're getting these in and installed in time for school.
Well, I'll entertain a motion with regard to selecting one of these two individuals as the HVAC vendor.
Oh,
You got it, Drew?
no, my computer just went, so.
I make a motion to approve Environmatic as the HVAC vendor to replace HVAC units at the CIA building and James Arthur Intermediate.
It's a motion by Mr. Ham.
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Bisco. Is there any further discussion on this item? And so we'll do the roll call. Mr. Ham,
Yes.
Mr. Strange,
Yes.
Mr. Bisco,
Yes.
Ms. Webb,
Yes.
Ms. Carruthers,
yes.
Mr. Clark. Yes, that motion passes unanimously. That brings us to B, discuss, consider approval of door access control and security camera system. This is a closed session item if needed for Texas Government Code Section 551.076. Mr. G, do we need to go into closed session to discuss this item?
Because this involves safety and security, I would say that yes, we would like to, just so Mr. Hogan can ask questions, answer your questions, and we don't violate anything that's going to basically go against what we're trying to create with our safety and security. So.
And so item C is also a potential closed session discussion. Does the board have any opposition to taking both those items in closed session, then coming out and acting on both if we need to at the conclusion?
No.
All right. So we will recess into closed session to discuss and approve, or discuss and consider approval of door access control and security camera system. Closed session, Texas Government Code Section 551.076, and also discuss, consider personnel needs of the district. Closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071 and 551.074. We are recessing from regular session. I have at 8:16 p.m.
Okay. So thank you all, and we will see you guys later.
Who needs to stay? Does Mike need to